Simplified unit, salute! Just hours after uploading this week's Raw review live on this channel. A lot of you guys may not have known that. There's been some issues on this platform. The uploads not getting out to you guys or the notifications. And they've been separating the live streams from the regular uploads. So, a lot of issues. And I know it's affecting a lot of you guys being able to catch these live streams as of late, or even know that we're live. But just a few hours ago, Monday Night Raw's review live. And wow, did you guys bring it? So that made BC bring it, and that was one action-packed hour plus. One of my favorite reviews that we've done in a long time. I appreciate everyone that tuned in live and those that'll catch it later. So this is bonus amplification. But just because it's bonus, don't think for 1 second you're not going to get a complete, probably another hour of content, or damn near anyway, because there's a lot to talk about. And I don't want it all to be about WWE either. We've been talking a lot of WWE. I want to switch focus, switch gears, flip the script a little bit, go over to AEW. There's a lot to talk about. Couple of things we have to touch up on with WWE. They're about to do something unthinkable. And also at the tail end of this podcast, we will go over the Raw rating for this week, last night's show. It's not out yet, so we're going to take care of every other headline and topic first, and then at the end of this upload, we'll go over the Raw rating. It's been at 1.4 semi the last 2 weeks because the show is just not good at all. And it deserves a 1.4, deserves a lot less than that. And when you have competition like football or Major League Baseball's World Series or anything, it's going to affect the number, but we never use that as an excuse. Because over years and years of ratings, one thing has remained consistent. If you're putting on a good show, your numbers will show that. You may not beat your competition, but in instances like this, you're going to pull more than a 1.4, right? History has shown us that. But what these numbers tell us is fans aren't even interested to tune in during commercial breaks or halftime, in between innings. That's what's really bad about these shows. The fans don't even have interest to check it out during commercials. That's what the numbers are telling us. Now, last night's football game was Detroit Lions versus Vegas Raiders. It's a pretty poor football game, all things considered. So that should uptick Raw a little bit, get them deep into the 1.5s at least. The baseball game was not that intriguing. Maybe they hit 1.6 semod. That's the highest. I don't see them hitting a 1.7 because the show is just not that good at all. So I don't see that at all. We'll see. We'll get it. We'll find out pretty much nearly as close to as live on air as possible, because that's the last thing we're going to record in this podcast. And then we'll discuss it. So that's the WWE side of things. Now, the AEW side of things. Man, last week I did a lot of traveling, a lot of business, and I took a step away from pro wrestling in large part. Somehow I was able to cover Raw and SmackDown and get a review. Not a full-length review for either, but a review out for you guys. Get some content out for you. So somehow I was able to catch Raw and SmackDown. I totally took a step back from AEW, all things AEW. And I wanted to use that time as just a breath of fresh air, right? Try to find that love that I once had for AEW when it was first starting, and that feeling that is kind of going to the wayside, right? The talent we're hearing, and that's going to be a big story that we're going to cover. The talent is not feeling the same way as they did when AEW started. Diehard fans of AEW are no longer feeling that same passion and excitement. So BC didn't want to totally lose that. So I took a step back. I used this traveling and this business time to say, hey, when I come back, I want to hear great stories, and I want to know there's a reason to catch up on AEW, everything I missed. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. A lot of news coming out for AEW, and none of it, literally none of it positive. From just freak accidents like Bryan Danielson and his injury, to just the talent. The latest report we're getting that the talent is frustrated about their creative direction, or not even knowing their creative direction. And the reason why is even more sad. And we're going to go over that and the unraveling of Tony Khan and how it continues. And it's starting to get to kind of a concerning level, and then just embarrassing, right? Jeff Jarrett offers the invitation for Jim Cornette to come to AEW, and Jim Cornette's response just makes AEW look so Bush League, and it's embarrassing. And then you have the Collision rating, where Tony Khan put everything into Collision, a main event that easily should have been on their biggest pay-per-view and their biggest main event imaginable. MJF and Kenny Omega. And they gave it away on free TV on a Saturday night. And they went for the Grand Slam. And instead, it was a failed bunt. A bunt that didn't even get them on base. They went for the Grand Slam. It was a failed bunt. Wait till you hear the Collision rating. And now it's something that needs to be discussed. This is obviously a bigger problem. Problems with an S that AEW has. There's a lot to talk about, guys. I'm going to make this coffee right now. You guys are going to go to the Electricity signature opening. Come on back. Lock in the earbuds. Smash that up if you don't mind. Grab your beverages. And I say we all get amplified on a lot of pro wrestling talk that needs to be discussed. Salute. Let's do this. All right, unit. We're going to start with the WWE just to get that out of the way first. Just one big topic. Again, later we'll go over the Raw rating, but for right now, just an unthinkable thing that Paul Levesque McMahon is about to do, and it makes zero sense. There literally is no sense into this. It does nothing for anybody involved. First and foremost, salute. So what are we talking about? They are thinking about, or have already come to the conclusion, that they want to do The Miz with DIY. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano versus Imperium. 6-man tag type style. Most likely for like a Survivor Series or something stupid like that. But The Miz, you saw on Monday night, if you caught the review just a few hours ago live on this channel, that was one of the things I ranted on the hardest, because I could not believe, after the response they got with Bronson Reed and Gunther, and you saw that response, the lack of response. Everybody in attendance was confused. Didn't know who to cheer for. They're both bad guys, and they're still trying to get over to the casual fan. Even Gunther, who's one of the most badass champions we've had in years. Gunther is amazing, but there's a lot of casual fans. It just doesn't do anything for him. He's just another one of those bad guys. They want to see the faces just kind of conquer, and if he's gone tomorrow, they won't notice for several years, probably, right? I mean, he's just one of those dudes. So what do? They put two heels together, Bronson and Gunther. It was so odd. The reception is exactly what I knew it would be, and Paul Levesque McMahon found out the hard way. So then they tripled down last night. And Levesque McMahon has the Miz TV with Gunther, and Gunther and Miz are screaming at one another. Then they start beating the shit out of one another. Then Imperium is beating up Miz like Miz is a face. Like the bad guys are all putting the boots to the face, and the face now needs somebody to come save him. The problem is it's Miz. It's little annoying, obnoxious, idiot Miz. And again, like I said in the live stream, you guys know, I actually like Miz. I like serious Miz more than comedy Miz. But it was so odd because now we're just doing heel versus heel on a completely another level. Gunther is talking down to Miz. Gunther is out healing Miz in this segment. What does that do for Miz? It does nothing. And I mentioned in that review, are you trying to turn somebody? Because you're miserably failing. If you tried to turn Bronson Reed when Gunther beat him 2 weeks ago, and he was sitting in the ring and he was looking all confused, that's usually when the crowd will show you sympathy. The crowd was showing him nothing. It was silence. So that failed if you were trying to go that route. Now, if you're trying to turn, right, maybe they wanted Bronson with DIY. So, okay, that failed miserably. Now, last night, they tried The Miz. Look at the crowd. Listen to the crowd. The crowd was confused AF. They didn't know what was going on. The Miz is a bad guy. Gunther's a bad guy. This bad guy is out bad guying the other bad guy. What do we do? Nobody knows. It's The Miz. So I said in the live show, are you trying to turn The Miz? Because that's an obnoxious, unthinkable, unacceptable idea. The Miz is not a face, bro. The Miz, of all people. I understand now you have Grayson Waller to fill that role. But The Miz as a face, I don't understand what we're supposed to get out of that. So DIY, now this is the report that we're hearing, is that they want to link up a DIY with The Miz, solidifying Miz's face turn. On one hand, you say, BC, you can't do anything else with The Miz, man. For years, he's been this heel, and for years, we haven't cared, until he does get serious, which is about 2 times a year. So BC, no harm, no foul. I say they try to turn him face. Well, evidently, we don't have a say in it anyway. They're going to go that route. The problem with it is he doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have, and this is coming from somebody who likes Miz. Outside, if you're chilling, having some beers with The Miz, probably the best personality. Pro wrestling wise, he doesn't have that factor to be a face. Somebody you're going to truly get behind and want to see in a main event at a WrestleMania. Or a crown jewel for that matter. Or show up to a house show and see The Miz in your main event. As a face, you think it's going to be that much better than a heel. You think Miz is going to make you feel that much more than he did as a heel. It's not. Just book him properly as a heel. You don't have to complicate the situation. Just book him properly as a heel. We've said 10 different times when he was in the LA Knight feud. 10 different times over one show, we said how awesome Serious Miz is. More of that, and you could do wonders with the faces. Just book him properly as a heel. Nobody's telling you turn Miz face and then stick him with 2 dudes that just got back together to form a black and gold, rehashed shell of a version of what they once were, DIY tag team. And I know that's harsh because we respect and we like Tommaso and we respect and we like Johnny Gargano. But this is a shell of what they once were. They're battered. They're more injured than ever before. They don't go like they used to, nor do I believe they can because they're so banged up. This is not black and gold's DIY. This is main roster's bootlegged shell of what they once were, DIY. Now, you may still like that. That's fine. But just be prepared that they want to put The Miz with them. Miz will be the leader of this little 3-man group as we go through a multi-month facet against, what, Imperium? Maybe Judgment Day down the line? Miz and DIY. Tommaso and Johnny Gargano just cannot get away from The Miz. I really hope that's not the direction they're going with, but it looks like it already got started last night on Monday Night Raw. DIY with a win over, who'd they defeat? DIY beat Imperium, of all people. There you go. There you go. Just thinking back on it, DIY is already in this thing with Imperium. They beat Imperium. Miz now has a problem with Gunther and Imperium. So yeah, now that I really think about it, man, everything is kind of adding up to this is most likely going to happen. Miz turning face. And again, the way they set it up was just out of nowhere. The most random shit ever. With Gunther screaming at Miz and Miz taking on all the heels. What? It's happening, man. It's happening. Instead of just giving us the good version, the good heel version of Miz, which was great with LA Knight. I freaking was enjoying Miz and LA Knight, and there's no reason that can't be done. Miz has done it before with Dolph Ziggler on 2 separate occasions. Miz actually did it with John Cena once. And several other times when you get serious Miz, man. It's really good. Face Miz? When you can't even book your faces prop, Jey Uso is already second, third area at this point. Sami Zayn, this poor guy will be feuding with the Judgment Day till 2047 if he's still wrestling and rocking. Sami Zayn cannot get away from that. Sami Zayn is always tied to the hip with a Kevin Owens or a Jey Uso or Cody Rhodes or a Sethington Rollins. Last night it was Ricochet saving Sami. They can't book their faces correctly. They don't know what they're doing. Kevin Owens, they just float him over on the blue brand out of nowhere. Cody Rhodes lay down next to a rubber chicken, have a fucking 3-month feud with Brock Lesnar with no purpose or reasoning, and we're never even going to tell you the story or the reasoning because we don't have one, because you didn't win the title at Mania. So that was what the story was supposed to be, but instead you're just going to have a 3-month thing with Brock. Brock's going to break your arm 3 different times, and then you're going to hug it out after you beat him at SummerSlam. Yes, and then the rest of the year, Cody, you're going to be facing the Judgment Day, even though you already beat all of the Judgment Day while you were in the Brock Lesnar feud over the summer. But we're not supposed to remember that. We're not supposed to talk about that. They don't know how to book their faces correctly, so let's make The Miz a fucking face and tie him down like an anchor to DIY, who already needs a life preserver. At least one, so they can, but they're both small dudes, so they can both fucking latch on to that life preserver. Who knows? You know, I can go another hour on, man. If you saw the Raw review, you know how I feel about Monday Night Raw, man. We let it all out, as Aaron Lewis would say, man. We let it all out in that Raw review just a few hours ago. I was not holding back. I'm just tired of it. And it doesn't even have anything to do with the Trick or Street fight, by the way. That's just the icing on the cake. I actually got some laughs there with fucking Piper and Chelsea dressed up as Heart Foundation and the sex kitty Natty. And Michael Cole screaming, candy corn! No. That's a different level of corny. Doesn't matter which McMahon is in control, you're always going to get those. VKM, HHH, it doesn't matter. It's the actual creative decisions that are being implemented that are absolutely mind-numbingly, mind-bogglingly, obnoxiously, absurdly, unacceptably pathetic to the most amplified of measures. And I just don't know. And I've talked to people that know a lot more behind the scenes than BC. And they're saying the same thing. Nobody knows what Levesque McMahon is doing, but everything is not making sense or adding up. I have no idea, man. I have no idea. But you could be seeing a face Miz in the future, and it looked like it got started last night. I hope they rethink it. I hope they just go, listen, serious Miz, let's just go with that and keep him as a heel. He's got the mouth for it. But if you think we need another dude in a suit, looking all slick, who's got the gift to gab, and he's gonna be the face. No, we already have Cody Rhodes in that role, smiling to the ring, all slick with the gift to gab. That role is already filled, bro. Just be the Grayson Waller of Monday Night Raw, but serious, and maybe we can get some good feuds out of you. Anyway, that's the WWE side of things. Again, I'll have the Raw rating in just a little bit. Now over to AEW. A lot to talk about here. Again, I took a step away from AEW. I really didn't have a choice. I thought I was going to have to take a step away from everything. I was able to catch most of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. And so I was able to put content up to you guys last week. Really condensed reviews, but at least it was something. So I took this time and I said, great. When I come back to the AEW side of things, I'm hoping that so much good happened. The ratings are popping off. Everybody's talking about how good these shows have been. And it's going to force BC to actually go back and check some of it out and be excited to watch what's coming up this week. And unfortunately, the moment I got back, it was one just not good story after the other. First of all, we hear Dynamite was kind of all over the place. It had its good moments. It had its off. There was a lot of opportunity to fans to just put the remote down on another channel and not pick it back up. And sure enough, that's what I was hearing first and foremost. And then sure enough, the rating popped off at under 800,000 viewers. They had actually lost over 120 some odd thousand viewers in 1 week. 901 last week, bouncing back from the 600 from their Tuesday night show. And there was no reasoning for it. I mean, stiff competition is always going to be there. But to lose 120,000 viewers, that tells you that a lot of them were not going back during commercials or anything. They just didn't care. That's what that tells. When you lose that many viewers, it's telling you a much deeper story. So Dynamite falls to the wayside, and then Tony Khan just goes for a grand slam. This was a ballsy, risky gamble. He put all the chips on the table, and last week's Collision pulled over 500,000 viewers. What was it? I don't know if it's even in my notes. Yes, it is. 518 is what they pulled last week. 518. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot. It's not. But it's Saturday night, and you're against a lot of competition. So, I mean, we've seen Collision go to 4 and even 300 some odd thousand. So when you're pulling 500,000, it's like you robbed the bank. Keep running and don't look back. You know, don't pass go. Don't get another 200. I'll just keep going. So I'm not saying 500,000 is good, but man, in that time slot and what they've pulled in the past, just take it. So Tony Khan said, well, man, I really like to make that 600-700 plus. And he put a main event out there that stunned the wrestling world. MJF versus Kenny Omega. Everyone knows, right? If you're a wrestling fan, you know that's a pay-per-view main event. I'm just thinking about them right now, man. And I know you guys are going to say, well, BC, that's because you're really high on MJF. And you're really high on Kenny Omega, so of course you're going to say that. Guys, it doesn't matter if I'm a big supporter of both or not. It's Kenny Omega and MJF. AEW was founded upon people like a small group of individuals like Kenny Omega. He's one of the reasons AEW was founded. And MJF, you could easily say, he's literally the centerpiece of AEW right now. You could literally say that, not just because he has a World Heavyweight Championship, by the way. Just because most fans would say, like, he's the glue that's holding it all together. But the ratings don't show that. I'll be the first to say that. And I am stunned that MJF can't even pull those ratings. And that shows you there's a bigger problem with AEW. But this is a match that not only should have been saved for pay-per-view, but for a main event at a big pay-per-view. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. It won't be the last, where a big match is put on TV. Because, again, ratings matter that much. For those fans that say ratings don't matter, that's why you see matches like this. That's why you saw Hogan, Goldberg, and so many more in WCW in the past. A lot of those backfired too, by the way. And that's why they teased Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold. Remember that? I think that was Dude Love's debut. But they teased that because the ratings matter. And that's why you see matches like this, because you want to pop a rating. It's why you put mini pay-per-view style events on your weekly television shows. Like AEW did, Title Tuesday to go against NXT. It's why NXT stacked their cards so vividly. You want to pop the rating still in 2023. It's the only measurement we have to see what is working and what is not. The DVRs, the cord cutting, the highlights on platforms like this, those are other metrics. You can count them. I'm not saying they don't matter through and through, but it's about who's watching live on their big screens. Who thinks that this is good enough, more important enough, to sit your ass at home and watch on your big screen? That's why ratings matter. And he went for the grand slam on Saturday. Tony Khan went with MJF versus Kenny Omega. I am strongly against it. I respect the move. But it just seems to me that even if he was going to pull 700 to 750, he was never going to get more than that. On a Saturday night, you're not pulling, what'd they get, 518 last week. You are not going to pull more than 200,000 viewers out of nowhere just because of a match. Doesn't matter how big it was. But if they were able to pull the 7 to 750, my theory was watch it go right back to around 600-ish, tops, I'm being generous, the very next week. And if you don't pull together a strong card, that could leak right back into the 500s within 2 weeks. We know this because NXT has done it so many times, right? I'm just using NXT as a recent model. They've had really good matches. Main roster talent come over, popped a massive rating, and then they went back another $1 to $1.50 the very next week. So what I'm saying is when you weigh out the positives and the negatives were kind of, and I'm being generous, very much outweighing the positives. The sad part is we never even got to that theory because they never even came close to 700,000. They never came close to 6. They never even hit 5. This week's Collision, and I understand about competition, guys. I never use that as an excuse. It affects the number. It is not the sole reason, believe me. Kenny Omega and MJF and the Collision as a whole pulled 472,000 viewers this week. 472,000 viewers from 518 last week. So not only did they not pop a massive rating, they actually lost nearly 50,000 viewers this week from last week's Collision. MJF, Kenny Omega main event, took away 50. Now, I'm not blaming them, trust me. That's the issue, though. There's a massive problem with an S, problems in AEW, and they need to be addressed like yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Major issues. Now, in this one tiny bubble, we know the issue. This should have been saved for a pay-per-view. Build it up and make people pay for this, no question. Take out the wallet, pay their money. It's Kenny Omega, it's MJF. So that's the easy fix, right? Learn the lesson. It's okay to put together big matches for free TV. Pop a rating. I'm down with it. Shows you care and you're taking risks. But there's some matches you cannot give away. This is a massive match. A massive amplified match. And it's not even like it was Dynamite's main event, your flagship, where you know you could have a chance to pop 950, maybe even $1 million with that match. You put it on Saturday night. But the bigger issues, man, and I've been going over these a lot lately. We all know that Tony Khan took on way too much, way too soon. In just 5 years, this guy has 3 primetime television shows. Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, and he has another whole organization, ROH. Why? Your flagship show, it can't even get 800,000 viewers this week. Normal night, normal time slot. Competition, BC. No, I don't want to hear it. It's struggling to get 1 million. I can't remember the last time it even got 1 million. But that's just a magic number that everybody grasp onto. Let's just pull a good rating. And 700 some odd this week? That's the flagship, guys. Rampage pulled 300 some odd thousand on Friday night. Why is that even a concept? I have no idea. Collision, with a match like this, pulled 400 some odd. If you add them all together, they barely beat out Monday Night Raw, or are right there with Monday Night Raw. And that's all 3 of Tony Khan's shows together. And Monday Night Raw pulls in a really bad rating. And then after all 3 of Tony Khan's shows, you then have ROH. Why? Talk about splitting your audience. A roster of over 200 individuals, and basically, if you even just look at ROH as a 4th show, you can do that. Why? There's no need, and you're hurting your own product. You're oversaturating your own product. You're overexposing your own product. You're confusing your own fan base onto which superstar is where and what show is on at what time on one night and how do I even find ROH. You're confusing your own base. Are you guys seeing a vicious cycle here? Tony Khan keeps adding more and more viewers walk away. Tony Khan adds more viewers walk away. And the vicious cycle keeps going round and round. But that's okay. BC has a fix for this. Take out Rampage. Get rid of it. Put Collision, because I like the atmosphere of Collision. I like the theming. I like the coloring. I like Collision. Put that on Friday nights, and you put it head-to-head with Monday Night Raw. Yeah, on a Friday. You put it on Friday nights with SmackDown when it's going to go to the USA Network next year. It's not going to be on broadcast television. It's no longer on Fox. Starting next year, SmackDown is on cable television. Rampage is only pulling in 300,000 viewers-ish. And Collision is only pulling in 400 some odd thousand. You have nothing to lose. You get rid of Rampage, it's only going to help your product, trust me. You put Collision on Friday nights, head-to-head with SmackDown, and even if SmackDown is whooping the ass of Collision, I promise you, Collision is at least, bare minimum, gonna pull way more than 500,000 viewers, 600,000-700,000, most likely. If they do the bare minimum of what they're doing. More interest will be there on Friday nights, not after SmackDown when people are all wrestled out and they don't want to turn the channel over to watch another hour of AEW or even the local bingo hall or Impact or MLW or GCW. They're wrestled out. 2 hours of WWE will exhaust you. No, you put it on head-to-head, you make it fun. Make it fun. They can do no worse than the 300,000 they're pulling now, guys, after SmackDown. That's all Rampage is doing. They're pulling in 300,000. That's horrible. You have to take this off the air. They're close to pulling in numbers that Law & Order SVU or Blue Bloods could pull in on reruns. So you put Collision, who's also pulling in really bad numbers and on a bad time slot night. You put them head-to-head with SmackDown when you know the wrestling audience is going to be there. You can call it the Friday Night Wars, or you cannot even pay attention to the other. But the bottom line is, they're at least going to pull what they're pulling now. And I guarantee you, it would be more than that. It'll be more than 400,000 against SmackDown. This is straight business. And again, it's going to help this company because you took out a third show that is not needed. In 5 years, this guy has 3 television shows in prime time in a whole nother company. It took years after Monday Night Raw just to get SmackDown. NXT was years later. And I mean, probably decades by the time it hit USA Network. And Tony Khan's just trying to be WWE in 5 years. I'm going to have all the shows, a roster of 200 people. I'm going to have another company over here. And nobody's watching. Everybody is leaving. His own die-hard, tried-and-true fan base is walking away because it no longer suits them. The Collision rating is sad because I am so high on MJF and Kenny Omega. And I like those dudes so much. And I put so much. Just went really Italian on you guys. So I put I put so much stock in them because I know how good they are and what they could be and should be for this company. Any company they're working for. And to see them placed in this position, there was no real build. I know, BC, man, if you watch the show, there was. No, there really wasn't, though. For Kenny Omega and MJF, I'm telling you, there was not enough build. I say barely any, if any. Most fans didn't even know it was on. That's not good. That's why I say it's a bigger problem. This isn't just MJF and Kenny Omega couldn't pop a rating, which, by the way, this is why you do not open your mouth and say things that could hurt your own roster, like what Tony Khan said about John Cena and The Undertaker not being able to pop a rating anymore. Meanwhile, his own oldies like Edge was pulling in less of a number on that same night. And now his 2 big stars in AEW couldn't even get 500,000. This is why we say Tony Khan should get off of the social doohickey machine. Stop doing the interviews. Be more of a boss backstage. And that brings us to the next unfortunate story that I returned and had to do a deep dive into. Tony Khan unraveling even further. Because apparently, and Meltzy even backed this story up, by the way, and Meltzy's pretty much in the pocket of AEW, more specifically the Bucks, but, I mean, Tony Khan and all of them take Meltzy's word as gospel, and he's basically in their pocket, but even Meltzy is saying, or backing up, the report that we're hearing that a lot of talent in AEW, frustrated is the word being used. And more specifically as to why, creatively, they don't know what's happening. Right, we've been hearing this for weeks, but even for Meltzy to have to say, well, you're going to hear this eventually anyway. So here's the deal. The talent doesn't believe that they are having ample amount of time to get their creative direction. So they don't know what to do character-wise, what to plan for. They're kind of being caught off guard with what's being thrown at them. Now, Jerry Lynn, I believe it was, longtime wrestler, obviously, current agent and / producer for AEW, he had a rebuttal for, I believe this was Meltzer's report, and he said the reason why is because Tony Khan no longer wants anything being leaked out to podcasts or to insiders. So the talent is becoming even more frustrated within the company. And the way Melty Boy put it was the same things that everybody was ridiculing WWE for is the same things that everyone's getting angry about in AEW talent-wise. Oh, that's telling you something. So you're going to risk your talent being upset, your roster is frustrated, and they're getting increasingly more angry by the show because you don't want to tell them what they're doing creatively. You don't want to give them their direction ahead of time because you're too paranoid that it's going to be leaked. It sucks. I get it. I love the fact that you want everything to be hidden and a secret and you want the fans to be generally surprised. Cool. You might want to start with actually giving us good television shows, top to bottom, start to finish, beginning to end, right? Before you start to do anything surprise-wise, just give us good creative. Even if it's leaked, if it's good, viewers will watch, right? It's like when they said Mick Foley's going to win the championship. Oh, that'll put a lot of asses in seats. That'll get a lot of eyeballs to the TV screen. And WWE Raw ended up defeating Nitro on the day that Eric Bischoff had Tony Schiavone say that. It could be leaked. It could be spoiled. If it's good, that's going to make people watch. So I respect what Tony Khan's trying to do, but you cannot go about business paranoid. You're going to lose your locker room. And you almost, if not already did for a lot of those wrestlers after the whole CM Punk, Phillip Brooks debacle. You probably lost a lot of them. There's probably a fracture in that locker room that still to this day hasn't been glued together or stapled back together. So now you're willing to risk it even more because you're too paranoid about shit being leaked. Guys, this whole war with WWE with Tony Khan started because Tony Khan said people were tampering. They wanted my talent while they were under contract. Contract tampering. And he got really paranoid and he closed up house. And he went off the rails and he got paranoid and he started thinking there was a war with WWE. This dude started to unravel, and when he lost a couple weeks ago to Tuesday night's NXT show, man, did he publicly unravel. But to hear now that the locker room is pissed off because they just don't know what's happening creatively and Tony Khan is not being transparent, this is not the way to go about business. I understand you want to hide things from certain individuals, like maybe even the Meltzies and stuff. Cool. But don't lose your locker room. Make sure they know what's happening well in advance. It's only going to help their character development. It's going to help the segments. It's going to help your shows and your company. And we know this because history is deemed to repeat itself. WWE went through the same thing. And on this channel, we dragged and ragged on them. We ripped WWE apart because wrestlers were saying they were almost like in a prison. Like WWE had become like a prison to them. And they were just upset. They were not happy. They didn't know what was going on. There was no transparency. A lot of the stories we're hearing is that AEW is kind of following that suit, and Tony Khan is unraveling by the day. So you come back to the Dynamite, pulling in lower than 800,000 viewers, somehow lost 120,000 viewers. You find out that they threw a mega main event for a pay-per-view on free Saturday night television, and they failed to hit even 500,000 viewers. And then you find out that the talent in AEW, the roster, is not happy, growing increasingly frustrated because Tony Khan is not being transparent with them creatively and telling them their direction and what he has planned for them. And then that wasn't even it. And then Jeff Jarrett says, Jeff Jarrett invites Jim Cornette to AEW, like Dynamite. Like I would love to have Corny over. Invite him over, let him see what we do, and let's see if he rags on us afterwards. That's eye of the beholder. But at least be our guest. Come to AEW. And Jim Cornette just absolutely ripped. Jim Cornette absolutely, just embarrassingly ripped them. I'll give you the actual quote from Jimmy Cornette. One second, guys. Let me get the actual... All right, so So again, I think this was Jeff Jarrett who invites him over. Jarrett says, and I quote, "I would love to have Corny. I'd love to have him." Jim Cornette responds, "I appreciate the invitation from real Jeff Jarrett." I guess that's his handle. "I appreciate the invitation from Jeff Jarrett to attend AEW in Louisville tomorrow. I tried to make it work. I tried hard to make it work, but I couldn't find another person in town going, so we could split the 2-for-1 ticket offer." Because, you know, they're doing deals. They're giving away free time. I mean, they're just trying to fill these arenas. It's hard times for AEW. And Jimmy Cornette's making sure you know about it. He says, "I tried hard to make it work, but I couldn't find another person in town going to the show, so we could split the 2-for-1 ticket offer. But maybe they can find another ratings ploy in time." Wow, man. So they were going to pop a rating by having Jimmy there. So he called him out on that, and he ripped them for the lack of attendance and how they distribute their tickets. And he says, "I couldn't find another person in town even going." That's embarrassing, right? I mean, that makes AEW look so freaking Bush League, man. At a time where AEW is hurting right now as an organization because it starts from the top, like I always say, man. Tony Khan, when he started unraveling publicly a couple weeks ago, I told you guys this is where it's going to get really bad, man. It started with the CM Punk shit, the NXT defeat of AEW. Totally sent Tony Khan into another direction. And the low ratings are absolutely going to just... I mean, Tony Khan's just going to bang his head on a brick wall at this point. But when you take somebody like Jimmy Cornette, for those that don't know, Jimmy Cornette just doesn't like AEW, right? I mean, that's kind of his shtick now even. So a lot of what he says is that there's a lot of truth to it, but it's also become like a shtick. So a lot of people are kind of, you know, if it's Jimmy Cornette, they take it with a grain of salt. So to just say, like, the guy who can't stand you, man, let's invite him to the show, it's not a good look for AEW. Because what if Jimmy Cornette absolutely fucking derails the concept and rips you apart and embarrasses you? And Jimmy Cornette did exactly that. So that's just the latest. Right before we started recording, that story started surfacing. And I saw it a couple times. So I was like, oh, it's already... I mean, that's another thing where AEW looks absolutely like idiots. It's, They need to RELAX, guys. That's it. Everyone take a deep breath, man. AEW, whether you like it or not, the only chance we have at true competition for WWE is AEW right now. So whether you like them or not, you really, I would think that you would hope they succeed. Because somebody, I used to say, somebody's got to smack Vincent Kennedy upside the dome piece to wake him up so that Vincent Kennedy will produce a better product. Well, now we say it about Paul Levesque McMahon as well. You got to smack Paul Levesque McMahon upside the dome piece so that Paul Levesque McMahon can wake up and just deliver a better product. The only entity that can do that really right now is AEW, All Elite Wrestling. So, yeah, BC is absolutely hoping for their success. You know, it's funny, the times that we talk about AEW, a lot of people think I'm just so harsh or negative on them. First of all, to that, I would say, have you heard me talk about WWE? You think I'm glimmering with hope and all these positive vibes for WWE television? Have you heard me rip apart WWE for justified reasons? So that would be my first response. And my second is, there's not much to talk about that's great. There's so many issues. And if they were pulling in good ratings, not even great, just good. And if they were the talk of the wrestling world, and all the headlines were so damn positive, then BC would be forced to eat the L, right? I'm absolutely wrong on all of it. But everything I've said is always truth, and it's backed up by facts afterwards, right? The ratings come in, and everything I said about the shows were correct, because most people felt the same way. All the things that I'm addressing beforehand, they end up being headlines afterwards about AEW, and it's not in the positive way. BC was right again. Right, if I was just wrong about it all and all the facts said differently than what I was saying, dude, shut the fuck. I know when to eat a piece of that humble pie and shut the fuck. I know, right? When you're wrong, you're wrong. Take L's. I get it. I've taken many. And if I was here, take the L, move on. Which I would do. Sadly, every time I have to speak about this, it's nothing but truth being spoken about, and you find out afterwards in the headlines. Or in the numbers, the statistics, the metrics come out, and everything I said was 110 billion% correct. I can't wait for the day, just like I say when WWE finally produces a good Monday Night Raw, I'm hoping for that day. I can't wait till AEW wakes up and finds their identity, who and what they are, and then rocks it out. Because then the industry of pro wrestling will be fun again. They're far from it right now. So what I wish they would do, people from Tony Khan down, is instead of looking at people like BC and going, oh, so harsh, so negative, I hope one day they go, dude actually is speaking gospel. It's straight up truth. And maybe we should listen. The dude is actually, every time he says it, it's correct. Maybe we should try it this way. Maybe we should tweak this. Maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. Maybe we should take that away. Maybe we should add this over here and just see if it works. Everything I'm saying, it's not moving mountains. It doesn't take rocket science in the pro wrestling world. Most of what I say is bare minimum, guys. It's the fundamentals, right? It's basic pro wrestling 101. It's the foundation it was built upon, you would like to believe. Most of the things I'm saying, you don't have to go to nothing that I say you have to go to a pro wrestling school for 17 years, earn your doctorate's degree in pro wrestling, and then preach pro wrestling. No, it's just looking, watching, doing the research, delving into the history books, watching with a keen eye, dissecting with an even more vivid eye, and coming to the conclusion of what is working, what is not, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. If we're honest with ourselves, we can change this. If we're stuck in our ways with our ego in the clouds, and we don't want to hear any of that, then you're just doomed to keep repeating it. Rinse and repeat is what we call that in the industry. All right, finally got the text that I was waiting for. It is the Raw rating. So let me pull this now, man. This was the Raw rating for this week. Again, 1.4 semi the last 2 weeks. Because the football game was a little lackluster, baseball has, data-wise anyway, shown no real big effect on the pro wrestling audience. Don't know why that is. I don't know why there isn't really that crossover, but no real big change there. So the 1.4, I look at this, the high they're going to get is maybe into the 1.5s. I see that as realistic. 1.6, I wouldn't be shocked, I guess. I don't know how they would have pulled that. This show was that bad. 1.7 is not going to happen. I can tell you right now, as a numbers guy and somebody who follows the trends and trajectories, this show will not hit 1.7. 1.6, I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be a little surprised. I think 1.5s would be their highs. More than likely, they're going to sit right in the 1.4s as their low. And I wouldn't be shocked by that at all because they deserve to be in the 1.4s. They deserve to be even lower than that. That's how much this show is actually that bad. All right, guys. Let's see what it is. 1.391. No way. Hold on. Now that's usually reputable. But I usually get that before anything publicly goes out on like dirt sheets or whatnot. But that doesn't seem right. The problem is it's so early right now in getting the number that I don't think any dirt sheet is even going to have this yet. So I can't even back it up. Hold on, guys. I'm being told that WWE Raw pulled a 1.39, so they dipped into the one. So they didn't even get to the 1.5s. It was the Raiders and the Lions, and that's only if you use that as an excuse, by the way. There's one I've never even heard of that dirt sheet, to be honest, but they're saying 1.391. Down from the 1.476 last week, 1.391. Wow. So that was, sorry, apologies, guys. I'm a little bit, when you run a podcast, you got to have the gift to gab, right? You got to be entertaining. There's sometimes when I do these podcasts that I find some information out and you're kind of at a loss for words for a little bit. 139, they're in the 1.3s. And the excusenists out there, the apologists, they'll all say, well, football, basically. Well, even when there was no football, they were screwing around with 1.4s and 1.5s. Do you not remember that? Out of football season, they were still in the low ends of the 1 point some odds, and their high end was 1 point some odds. They couldn't even hit 2 million unless they themed the show up. That has nothing to do with football. Baseball, what was their top? Their top for the World Series was like an 8 milli, correct? And again, there's no big crossover for some reason with wrestling fans. It's really weird, the metrics and the numbers and the studies that have been done. But no matter what, they didn't even care to tune in during commercials or between innings or at halftime. A 139? Deserved. I don't even feel bad for them. I don't. If you listen to that review earlier, we did it live. It's on the channel. You're going to have to go to like they separated it through categories. It's hard for people to even know that live streams are going up. I understand. But we put up a live stream and I detailed why this show is a 1.3 to a 1.2 at best. Wow. I truly thought because the sporting competition was not as stacked as it could have been. The Raiders and the Lions, and the game was not that good at all. I'm being generous. I thought they had an opportunity to hit a 1.6 just by process of elimination, by deductive reasoning. A 1.6. I never thought a 1.7, but a chance at a 1.6. A 1.5 should, and under no circumstance did you not go up from your 1.47 last week in the sporting competition in the heavy football game that was on last week. Wow, man. Oh, now here's some other dirt sheet. They're finally getting wind of it. See, I get my news a little bit earlier than everybody else. Now Fightful just came out, and they're confirming the same thing, 139. Again, I never doubted my source, but when I see something so outrageous, I like to back it up a little bit. 139. Wow. All right. Well, 1.3. There, I told you guys this was gonna happen. You know, you say it because you see it happening, and then it actually does happen, and you're like, damn, I tried to tell everybody. I told you guys that by the years out, you could see a 1.2 rating. I said by next year, you're gonna fall into a normal of a 1.25. We're 100,000 viewers away from it. I tried to tell you. Too negative, too harsh. Yeah. How about the new title is So Truthful, So Honest? Because that's what BC truly is. And if that comes across as harsh or negative, then that's just the way it is. But everything I say, it's true. I tried to tell you guys a 1.25 is coming, and eventually a 1 million flat. And we rip AEW for not being able to hit this million in viewership. It's only a matter of time before Monday Night Raw is singing that same tune. My name's BC Amplified. Until next time, and there will be that next time. Top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Peace.